This is Before the Pitch, where you can love New York baseball no matter what shade of blue you are wearing. We are hoping everyone is staying healthy and safe during this coronavirus quarantine. We know we certainly are, but to keep you guys occupied with some baseball talk, we're actually going to be sharing with you our ideas for how to expand baseball as a whole. And we're going to do that through a multi-video series. This is part one. Part two will be presented next week, where Billy will be walking you guys through the cities we'd like to expand to or some relocate to, and all of our logos and team names and all the really cool stuff that we have planned that could be really cool for these teams. You definitely don't want to miss that. We put a lot of time to that, and it is really cool, some of the stuff we came up with. First and foremost, we are totally down with playoff expansion, but we believe the recent proposal that MLB has used is probably best served when we have more teams added. But that's cool, though. We'll talk about that another time. Today, we're going to talk about how you can still expand the playoffs with the current 30 teams that we have. Now, the benefit to more teams being in the playoffs means more fans get to show up, more merch gets to be sold, more hope during the regular season, which means more people will be more interested, and that drives revenue. I think that is probably the most important part, is finding a reason to get people involved. This is definitely a way to do that. And we see the NBA and the NFL, they have much longer postseasons than baseball does. Now, I can hear your complaint already, but we're not them. We don't want to be them. Here's the thing. Do you know what they have that we don't right now? That's fans in attendance. And it's proven that this is working other places, and even the NFL's expanded their playoffs. So it really is kind of a silly argument to try to keep the club very, very small. Now, obviously, there's kind of this flaw that we even recognize, the possibility of sub-500 teams being let into the playoffs. But again, we think we do have a plan that can prevent that. You ready? So what we're going to propose is a third wild card team. And we believe that's a good compromise because it does expand the playoffs. It lets two more teams in, and it eliminates the possibility of sub-500 teams being able to be in the playoffs. Now, here's how this whole system is actually going to work. So you can see the way we drew this up is wildcard teams 2 and 3 will play in a one-game winner-take-all game, just exactly like we do today. It'll be hosted by wildcard team 2 because they have the home field advantage and the better record. We love the idea of still keeping this one-game playoff game because it is so entertaining, and some people complain about it, but the majority of the fan base really, really does respond to it. We definitely are too. It's really exciting, and it really gives you a sense of urgency. You have to watch it. Some really cool stuff goes on in these games. It's really cool. We want to make sure we keep that. The winner of that game is going to go on to play Wildcard Team 1 in a 3-game series hosted by Wildcard Team 1 throughout, meaning there are no breaks and no travel gigs. It is just a best out of 3 series, and it's just going to go for 3 days straight should it need to go to all 3 games. Now, this is really cool because it emphasizes winning your division because you get to give your pitchers and your bench players that break that they need, which is not too dissimilar from the break they already have, which we're going to get into in just a quick second. But also, this puts importance on being the first wildcard team because you get to host all 3 games and you do not need to travel and play that extra winner-take-all game before. So the more you win, the more levels you are going to be rewarded on. And ultimately what this does is this automatically allows for teams to have more of a chance to be in the playoffs without cheapening the value of being a just barely above average 500 team. Now, the entirety of the wild card week will be played within 5 days, which is similar to the All-Star break, starting from the end of the season and not expanding the timetable of the playoffs too much from what it already was, and giving the division winners rest and the ability to reset their lives, but not so long that it's a detriment to the division winners. Doing this would require games to be played during the day and at night during that time period, and both the American League and the National League will play at the same time. But what this does is it creates a more saturated time for games, similar to where the NFL schedules their games on Sundays, or at least their wild card weekend. And the thing you have to keep in mind is this is only one more game of a rest in the All-Star break, and there already is a few days off from the end of the season anyway to compensate for the wild card game. So we're really not changing much. It's just one extra day, and really that's probably fine. But the travel days, they can't travel that far in so little time. Are you ready for this? Yes, they can. Here's the thing. On June 21st of this year, the Mets are expected to play a home game against the Phillies and immediately fly to San Francisco to play a game the very next day. If this is expected to be made during the regular season, it could still happen during the playoffs. And keep in mind, this travel issue will only happen during the wild card round, and there is going to be a break from the conclusion of Game 3 of the wild card series should it go that far, and you do have that 1-day break to get to where you need to be for the divisional series. So you'll have that break, and guess what? If you win the series in 2 games, you're going to get 2 days off. So it still works no matter what. The farthest plane trip you're going to have to take in baseball is if you went from Tampa to Seattle, and that's just over 6 hours, and we actually checked. There's actually quite a few 6-hour flights that happen during the season. Here's the change that's going to have to be made. There'll be no more breaking ties with the extra game at the end of the season should there be a call for a tiebreaker. Instead, if you need to take an extra step to distinguish these 3 wildcard teams, you can just go off their records against each other, and if those are the same, just go off of total runs scored. This would allow for the playoffs to start the day after the season ends for the wildcard games. If you're still skeptical of this, don't worry. We actually look back, and over the past 10 years, only once would a sub-500 team have been let in as a third wildcard seed. So this really does kind of withstand the test of time, and hopefully can sooner. We have decided before the pitch that we can swallow the pill of one team over 10 years being sub-500. The key importance of this whole thing about expanding the playoffs is to remember it rewards winning on different levels. You are rewarded for being competitive by having a shot at a third wild card. You are rewarded for being the highest seed of the wild card because you get to host the series and don't have to play the do or die game. And most importantly, you're rewarded the most for winning your division. So we see rewards happening on different levels, but because there's a reward or a winning value that could happen to so many different teams, now this drives fan interest and cities' interest, which ultimately drives revenue and brings people to the ball game. But that's how we would do this with only the 30 teams that we have right now. Again, we do have a plan for what to do with expansion teams, and that's coming up in the following videos starting next week. As I said before, you're really going to want to tune into that when we start talking about the teams and the cities. Then after, we'll get into our playoff format for more than 30 teams. Now, here's the thing. This is going to involve some realignment and splitting everything up into 4 divisions per league, but don't worry, we got that drawn out with actually many different possibilities that can all make sense and are within the realm of reality. But all of our expansion plans really do involve splitting up into 4 divisions, but that's okay because we think there's going to be some advantages that you're definitely going to want to check out. Thank you guys very much. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends. Hey, we're on Twitch now, which is awesome. Road Trip Matt is actually playing on Twitch. He usually plays a couple times a week. If you ever want to play him, you could just hit us up at Before the Pitch on Twitter, or go follow us on Twitch and get a load of him. You could play him at any time. He'll always make sure he gets the ability to communicate with you guys and arrange for a game to play with you. And he posts the highlights every couple days on our Twitter page and our YouTube, which is actually pretty darn cool.